Hi, this is Ron Rael of the High Road Institute. Thank you for viewing this video. One of the best ways to learn about something is to ask questions. In each video of this series, I respond to the top 5 questions posed to me regarding the topic. It is not the end of the world if your organization fails to prepare a budget. However, not taking the time to forecast the future is similar to planning a 3-week vacation and not knowing how much money you are going to spend. Your budget is not only about the money and resources needed, it is also about the goals you choose to pursue. Back to my analogy, if you don't prepare a budget, it is like taking 3 weeks off for vacation, traveling to a distant city without having hotel reservations, and not knowing what you are going to do once you arrive there. Taking a vacation without proper planning is ludicrous. Not taking the time to prepare a realistic budget for the coming year is also ludicrous. You don't need a degree or even formal training to develop a realistic budget. Start your education by thinking about your paycheck. The amount you earn each pay period is fixed and limited. You have certain bills that must be paid, or there are severe consequences, such as losing your house or apartment, or not being able to feed your family. Hopefully, you have some financial resources left over after paying the bills for fun things like entertainment and a vacation to a distant city. When you consider how you manage your family's finances, or should be, then you understand what budgeting is all about. However, instead of having a regular paycheck, the income comes in at different times of the year. Therefore, you plan carefully your spending based on when the money will come in and plan to have resources to cover any shortfalls. You also have a plan to pay for your bills, such as payroll, rent, other things like that. Hopefully, you have some resources left over to take advantage of opportunities, such as finding new customers, purchasing new equipment and tools, or launching new products or services. The primary reason that your budget feels like a joke is that you are not empowered, which is a key component to a good budget process. You feel like you have no say in the goals and in the amounts that you have been given to meet those goals. I suggest that you spend time with the person you work for and explain that you want to be more involved in the process so that you can understand how the department's budget was developed. Go into this meeting armed with a list of the goals that you must achieve and lead a discussion of where the funds, the money, is going to come from for you to pay for those goals that you have been tasked with. The most common way a budget is considered a joke is that the goals are set independently of the spending plan. In other words, you are given a list of 7 things you must accomplish, but only enough resources for 3 goals. You need a real conversation with your boss to understand the spending plan needed to achieve those goals. This is an important start to turning the budget from a joke into a true management tool. Most budgets start with a forecast for revenues or sales because that is where the money will come from in order to pay for expenses during the year. If your business model is not yet established, or you are in a situation of instability, there are 2 ways that you can proceed. The first is to develop a break-even budget. This budget will help you determine the amount of resources you must generate in order to cover all your fixed and variable expenses. This is known as covering your nut. The second choice available to you is to search for a process that garners insights into your marketplace so that you are able to determine the potential for sales. A budget is simply a definition of what your organization's potential is for the coming year. In every organization, there is a methodology to determine what you could possibly sell and deliver during the fiscal year. Once you have determined a reasonable and consistent methodology, then use it to develop a rough forecast of how much revenues you could potentially bring in for that year. An option to the second choice is just to forecast revenues on a quarterly basis, and then focusing on and managing the drivers of your revenue. Drivers of revenue are those actions that determine how much sales you will bring in, such as issuing quotes, making sales calls, completing RFPs, increasing website traffic, whatever it is that you do that leads for customers buying from you. I would say currently you are between a rock and a hard place because it is not the CFO's job to develop the budget. Your budget must be developed by the people who control and manage the resources and bring in the revenues. However, there is a way that you can play a better role in your company's budget process. This plan requires you to learn everything you can about the business and then work with each individual decision maker to determine how much resources they will need to do their job. Your responsibility is to compile the information that they will need and use this to develop their financial and spending plans for the year. Changing your role from one who writes the budget to being a facilitator of the budget takes quite a while. It is important that you do this because if you write the budget, then I guarantee you will be blamed for any revenue shortfalls, for overspending, and for uncompleted goals. Accountability for the development of a budget lies with the people who make the decisions that most impact the budget. That is not accounting's job. You don't sell, you don't make the product. I appreciate you and would love to answer your questions. Click on the link and pose your inquiry to me. I will gladly answer the question in a future video.